Hey guys, and welcome back. You know, just about every console has at least a few puzzle games. These are games that test your brain to promote problem-solving skills and critical thinking more so than other genres. Now, we all know the big name titles, your Tetris, your Dr. Mario, Columns, Bust-A-Move, but there are some games in this genre that not a lot of people seem to ever mention or even know about. And that's what we'll be taking a look at today when D-Pad Danny does lesser-known puzzle games.
Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine on the Sega Genesis is a US localized version of Puyo Puyo. The game tells the story of Dr. Robotnik capturing the beans of Beanville and using his Mean Bean steaming machine to turn them into robot slaves in an effort to rid the world of fun and music. You know, because he's an ass. It's up to you to seek out and thwart the plans of his robot minions who have been sent to round up the beans. To do this, you'll need to best them in a puzzle game, naturally. If you win, you'll free the beans they've captured and move on to the next robot baddie. The art style in this one seems to represent that of the goofy Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon series that used to be on TV in the 90s. The rules are pretty simple. Match the different colored beans in any grouping of 4 or more, so long as they are touching each other horizontally or vertically. This will clear the grouping from the screen. Your main goal is to outlast the enemy. When one of you reaches the top of the screen, that person loses. You can encourage your enemy to lose by cluttering up their area with dark beans. These will drop in your opponent's playfield when you clear multiple groups. These beans can only be removed when an adjacent group is cleared. If you can get a couple groups of beans cleared at a time, you have the potential to mess up your opponent real good. Watch out though, they can do the same to you. Oh crap! Oh crap! This mechanic really adds a sense of tension and demands you look at things a little bit differently. If you just go for straight up pairings, you probably won't last very long. Learning to place your beans in a way that promotes chain reactions is the key here. This is a pretty good entry to the Genesis library with its interesting gameplay, colorful graphics, and decent music. Though I'm not very good at it, it's fun and I would still recommend it. Currently you can snag a cart-only copy for around $7. I give it a 3 out of 5. Sega Swirl.
What, you don't know about Sega Swirl?
If you don't, honestly you shouldn't feel too bad, as this game never got a standalone release. Sega Swirl is a basic multicolored puzzle game that showed up on the PC and the Sega Dreamcast. This is the Dreamcast version here. The premise of the game is pretty simple. You move your cursor to a colored swirl and hit the button to clear that swirl and any connected swirls of the same color. The more swirls cleared at a time, the more points you'll get. If you clear a single swirl, you'll lose points, so it's important to try to line things up to where you'll ultimately end up with multiple groups of different colors. There's a timed mode where you try to clear all the swirls within 120 seconds while aiming for the highest score that you can get, and also an untimed mode where you are at your leisure to plan your moves a bit more. Each level has goals you need to meet in order to pass, including hitting a minimum score, clearing all the swirls within a certain amount of moves, or so on. If you fail to meet all the goals on a stage, it's game over. But if you get a high score, you can save it to your memory card. Take that, Swirly Snake! You can play with up to 4 players in a versus mode where you try to race to hit a set score, which is kinda neat. There's even an email versus mode where you can, I guess, play with someone taking turns via email? Sounds tedious. The music for this game is mostly jazzy jam tunes and drum and bass, which is probably a lot better than the game deserves. And just in case you forget what game you're playing, you can look down at your Sega VMU. Whoa! As I mentioned earlier, this game never saw a standalone release, but exists on the Dreamcast Web Browser 2.0, Sega Smash Pack, and various demo discs that came with the official Dreamcast magazine. If you have to play this, I'd say the Sega Smash Pack is your best investment since there's 11 other classic Sega games on it as well. You can get a complete copy of the Sega Smash Pack Volume 1 for roughly $10. This one gets a 2.5 out of 5. Brain Bender is an interesting game for the Game Boy. This obscure title by Electrobrain involves some sort of laser. You need to rotate all these reflector panels to make it take out all the balls on screen. Once they are all destroyed and the laser has been reflected to the endpoint, you can move on to the next level. Each stage has a time limit. If you run out of time, the game's over. That is, unless you have 1200 points to spend on a continue. The tricky part about this one is deciding which order to rotate the reflectors. If you rotate them to where the laser would be reflected back to the gun that generates it, the screen will flash and it'll play this nasty sound. Interestingly enough, this is one of the only sound effects in the game. If this happens, the time limit will drain really fast, so you definitely want to be careful about what direction the next panel is facing. The progression of difficulty from stage to stage seems to be off-balanced. You may have one stage that has multiple points to pass through, then the next one will be super simple. I'm not sure if this was done deliberately as a palate cleanser in between the more engrossing stages or what, but whatever. Later on, the game will introduce new elements like light bulbs that will need to be lit up before continuing on, and these thin tunnels that need to be hit straight on to pass through. The music is mediocre, and the same track seems to play over and over in the stages. I mean, it's possible that higher levels change it up, but I find it hard to stay motivated to play this one for more than about 15 minutes or so. The graphics are basic, but I guess they're about as good as they need to be for a game like this. If you're curious and want to check it out, it'll only set you back $2. I give it a 2 out of 5. Palomitas on the NES is a fun one, and a game I grew up with, so I might be a little biased towards it, but who cares, it's my show. You play as this little guy at the bottom throwing dice at the top of the screen. It may look like a jumbled mess at first, but as the cover art dictates, there's actually a method to this multicolored madness. You can cycle through the different dice faces, 1 through 6, each indicated by a different color, and throw them at the corresponding dice at the top. Doing so will clear it and add it to your tray at the bottom. This is the beauty of it all. You can press down to use your tray to clear rows of dice off the top. How many rows that are cleared will be based on the pattern of the dice you have in your tray. Again, referring to the cover art, you'll see that the patterns are based on poker hands. For example, if you use a tray of 3 pairs, you'll clear 3 lines. 5 of a kind will clear 3 lines. 6 of a kind will clear 4 lines, and so on. If you manage to get a tray of 1 through 6, you can use it to clear 5 lines. Obviously, just like in poker, this is what you want to shoot for, but take what you can get. Each level will have the dice dropping towards you faster. Naturally, if the dice reach the bottom of the screen, the game's over. The music is a little bit basic, and for the most part, it plays the same tune throughout the whole game. Despite this, I find it super catchy. Honestly, as a kid, I thought this game just kept going and going. It wasn't until, as an adult, I reached level 20 and the music changed that I had even considered it could be beaten. Needless to say, it can, and I did. Apparently, you were trying to save some girl from something? I assume she's your girlfriend, but I don't really know. There's a 2-player mode in this one as well, where in doing well you have your opponent's dice drop faster. This is a fun little title that no one ever seems to talk about, and you should definitely check it out. You can own it now for around $6. I give it a 3.5 out of 5, but only because it's a little on the easy side. Wild Snake for the Super Nintendo. This game has you matching up different colored snakes to clear them off the screen. You can control the snake as it falls, at a pretty decent speed to the ground. You can kind of force your snake to be positioned how you want it to some degree. If it's facing horizontally, it'll slither that direction until it hits a stopping point. If it's completely vertical, your snake can stand straight up. At the start of the game, you'll be provided 3 or 4 different colored snakes. As you progress, more and more snakes of different colors and patterns will be introduced. Ideally, you want to do your best to position the snakes to where they are accessible should a match come along. It's not always easy to do and can eventually be a convoluted mismatch of different snakes in a pit. Maybe they should have called it Snake Pit. When you clear a snake, the others in the area will slither down to their next logical spot based on the direction that they're facing. This can lead to unexpected and welcomed chain reactions. Every once in a while, a big snake that you can't control will show up and slither straight down and out of the playfield. Any other snakes this guy runs into will be cleared. Let me tell you, this can make you breathe a sigh of relief when things get hectic. There's also these glowing snakes that show up from time to time. They'll disappear at the first snake that they touch and clear all the snakes of the corresponding color. You can choose different locales to play in, including desert, forest, and water. These will change the way the border and the playfield look, as well as give you different music. All the tunes in the game have kind of an Aztec vibe to them. They aren't terrible, but just not super varied. Despite being created by Alexei Pajitnov, the guy who brought us Tetris, not many people seem to know about this obscure puzzle game. I never heard of it until I saw it at the flea market and bought it knowing nothing about it. To be honest, I played this game probably a lot longer than I thought I would. It's bizarre and strange, and honestly not very fun. Yet, something kept me playing. For puzzle games, you could still do a whole lot worse than this one. It can be yours for the super high price of $6. It earns a slithery 3 out of 5.
Well guys, there you have it. A handful of puzzle games that you may not have heard of before. Now some of these I'm not really sure why they're so lesser known. Others kind of deserve to die in obscurity. Guys, I want to thank you so much as usual for watching, and be sure to tune in next time to see what D-Pad Danny does next.